As mentioned in my previous video, the Bourbon Restoration focused on continuing the standardization reforms that were introduced with the Revolution. The 1816 heavy cavalry didn't suffer that much from changes in its form and can be considered as the direct continuation or a simple upgrade of the year 11 Line Cavalry Sword. Unlike the 1816 light cavalry, the line cavalry had changes made to its morphology that can be considered to be much more subtle in appearance. But changes were made, and these were the following. The pommel cap was redesigned, being longer in the back and shorter at the front where it connected with the knucklebow. The grip was still made of wood wrapped with black leather, but the form was flatter and a bit wider at the top near the hilt, and the number of wire turns was increased. The whole brass hilt was now made from a single piece of cast melted brass, and it now had a ridge that covered its front, and this was to deflect enemy blade thrusts. The branches junction with the hilt were now made more subtle, as they were now fully part of the design rather than being welded to the edge. The ferrule that kept the base of the grip now disappeared completely and was replaced by a hollow area of the hilt where the grip entered and remained secured. The blade was still made with double folders, however the shape of its back was made rounded as opposed to being flat, and it still had the same types of markings in the back and in the ricasso, which was also shortened. One of the lessons learned from the wars was that a spear point could provide better thrusting capabilities, so the tip of this model's blade was crafted as such. The width of the blade was reduced, as the year 11 was on average 27 millimeters wide. The 1816 was now 25 millimeters wide. The blade was allegedly 100 centimeters long, but most of the sabres that I encountered were on average 98 centimeters long. The scabbard was also redesigned, as this was the subject of much criticism during the war, and it was made lighter, slimmer than the previous version that was considered too heavy and uncomfortable. The side rivets were now replaced by a central one that was fixed to the side, and these rivets kept a new type of mouth, which was an oval-shaped pair of metal languettes that held the blade in place, and this replaced the need of having wood inserts. As with previous types of markings, the ricasso had the inspection stamps placed in vertical order, one over the other, matching those that were found on the inner side of the knucklebow. The back continued the practice of having the manufacturer's signature, having the date and the year of creation. The hilt also has stamps on the other side of the knucklebow and on the quillon. As is usual with French swords, there is a rack number that is found on the branch of the knucklebow, and in here it is number 420. That same number is found on the scabbard bracelet. This sword was officially accepted on May 12, 1818. However, production may have started on 1819 or possibly 1820. It was given to the regiments of carabiniers, cuirassiers, and dragoons with no reported opposition, so they probably just considered it as a simple upgrade of their old swords. The only problem with this model is that it came out too late to make a difference, and by the year 1822, another batch of swords was already coming out in the name of standardization, so the need for the 1816 halted and the sword faded away in the depot. Production didn't stop, and by the 1830s it was still being made by Klingenthal, but in very low quantity. The sword was used in low numbers until the end of the century, some of them being used during the War of 1870, but as last-ditch weapons. So this is it. This concludes today's video about the 1816 series. Thank you for your time today, and I'll see you next time.